And ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the 65th ever episode of the Best Phone Plans Podcast. Joining Dennis and I today, we have special guest Tailosive Tech from the Tailosive Tech YouTube channel. You've probably heard of him. He's kind of a legend, I want to say, in the Apple community, the tech community. So welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's good to be here. I've caught some of your guys' stuff before, and I love what you're doing, and I'm honored that you're up for supporting me and having me on. It feels good. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I think before we get into the show, we got to know, what internet provider are you using to stream this right now?
We're on T-Mobile home
We're on
internet.
T-Mobile.
After this
How?
whole replacement thing, I'm holding out hope that they can resolve the issues I've had, because I want to avoid going back to Comcast if at all possible. But we'll see. If I crash in the middle of the stream, we'll know why.
Yeah. I was like wondering, do you think there's a chance he'll crash? But
There's a chance.
So
There's a
I do
chance.
I do gotta ask. So I mean, I've watched your content for a very long time, and I gotta ask for clarification. Like, what started the journey of you switching away from Comcast? Like, was it just strictly price, or was it actual performance? Like, what made you actually start looking elsewhere?
So I'm definitely kind of a weird guy in terms of I like to have the principle of voting with my wallet with a lot of my expenses. Of I don't support the idea or business model. And yes, the pricing was not helping, because month by month it was going up. They were applying these new things. I used to not go over their data limit, which a few years ago was around a terabyte or a little bit more. And then my wife started working from home for her business, which was online. And we started going over the not unlimited, the data cap. So they applied price hikes, and we were like, well, this is getting ridiculous. We might as well get unlimited data, because we were using close to like 2 terabytes per month. So they were like, yeah, you should probably opt for unlimited. So we were paying $140 a month. And then on top of that, there were just additional fees showing up. I couldn't even tell where they were coming from. All I know is we were getting the charge every month. And I was like, that's higher. That's higher. What's going on? And I was, the download speeds were fine. Upload, I always feel, gets neglected. But that's probably just because I'm a content creator. So I'm like, give me the best possible upload. And they were like, all we can do is 40. And it would usually turn into 35, 30 on most days. And there were occasional outages. It was probably not as bad as T-Mobile's or Starlink's outages, but there were some days where it just shut off and they were like, sorry, there's maintenance or whatever. And so the price going up, and the fact that Starlink I was very interested in, and I wanted to try out, because I'm a big fan of SpaceX and I wanted to see where that service was going. So I signed up for the newsletter the second they had that on their website. They were like, enter your email here for updates. The second that option showed up, I was like, me, please, I want to try it. And so as soon as it was available in my area, I was like, oh my God, there's actually a chance I could ditch Comcast, because before Starlink emailed me, there was no hope. There was literally no one else. I think AT&T offers something really, really bad in my area. I looked it up and it was like up to 750 kilobits per second. I was like,
So it's the DSL then.
pretty much. Yeah. It
You're
was
like,
just,
sick.
we'll give you DSL in your area. And I'm like, okay, no, that's not it. So I was motivated by being a huge fan of the competition, and I just kept getting ads, and I hated the whole setup process of Comcast. And they wanted me to, well, they forced us to get like the cable TV and internet as one bundle.
Oh,
And I was just trying to set up internet. I've never had cable TV in my whole life, and I've never wanted it. And they were like, we have to activate service at your address. Can you plug in your cable TV box? And I'm like, I don't want to use it. I just want the Wi-Fi. And they were like, we can't activate your service until you plug in your cable TV box to your TV and make sure it's working. They wouldn't turn on the Wi-Fi until I set all that up. So I was just kind of annoyed with the principle of it, and I wanted to take my money elsewhere, just to say, you don't have power over me. You
Well, wait. I'm really confused. Was it actually like a cable television package that you got with the service? Like, you had live channels?
Yeah, like the 480p crappy, the box that you rent out. That's like, you got to plug it in and watch.
Why did you get TV? you could have just got internet, right? Like internet only is our
They would charge more. It would cost like an extra $30 a month to just get internet. I don't know if it's like this anymore. It's probably
It's definitely
changed, but
not.
It
Yeah.
never makes any sense. All right.
it never made sense
Frustrating.
to me. They were like, it's cheaper to get it with cable TV because I think their logic is we'll get you to subscribe to TV channels and we'll make our money back that way. But I'm like, I can tell you confidently I will not subscribe to a single channel. And they still kept saying like it's cheaper to get it with cable than it is without. So we were like, I don't
Yeah,
like
you
the
did it.
principle.
Yeah. So high prices, bad experience. You go to Starlink. What was your experience like using Starlink?
Well, it felt super cool to be using like next generation hardware, like this big
The
fancy
Dishy McDish face, or what do you call it?
Yeah.
Dishy McFlat face.
Dishy McFlat face. That's the legal term for that
Yeah,
hardware.
I love it. No, absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought the setup was incredible because, you know, one of the things I hated about Comcast was they had to have a person show up. At least when I got to this place, they needed someone to like come inside the house, and we were like moving in. I've got gear and equipment, and there's just this stranger that's like, "Yep, let me in," and you have to kind of let them in and do their thing for a few minutes. And Starlink's just a box that shows up in the mail, and you literally like one power cable powers the entire thing. Plug it in. It's got line of sight of the sky. Within 5 minutes, I was connected, and I was getting decent speeds through it. I was like, "That's pretty amazing." Like that's incredible how simple it is, and there's no other people involved. And I'm not a satellite installation expert. I've never installed any satellite in my life, and yet I could do it. Like I was
How
just
did you
amazed by the tech.
How did you get power to this? So like the satellite's on the roof, right? How did you end up actually running power to the satellite? Did you just like drill a hole in your roof and like run it through, or how did you actually
Well,
get
at
power?
first we wanted to make sure it was like capable of working, so I didn't drill yet. I just plugged it in and left it in like the front lawn. I just left it out in the yard. And I was just like, all right, let's see what this does. And it started moving and positioned itself how it needed to.
That's so cool. Wow.
Once we tested it out and we were like, okay, we can live with this, then we were like, let's start actually drilling and make it a bit more permanent, which I regret now. But we drilled it onto the roof and then hid the cable alongside the house best we could. And then, yeah, the same hole that the Xfinity coax cable came through, we fed the Starlink cable through, which was actually quite challenging because there's a big knot in it. But essentially one cable goes to the dish, and then that cable comes in the house and plugs into this black box. It's called a PoE injector, but they don't include that anymore. They've completely redesigned it. So they combined the power supply with the router. So it's one device.
Trust
That
me
was
when I
smart.
say I'm familiar with PoE injectors because I got ubiquity access points on each floor of my house.
Oh,
So,
okay. So you know what I'm
yes.
talking about.
Yes.
You get it.
That-
I was just confused by how you were getting power, and because you said it was so easy, and I'm thinking to myself, drilling this and then having to feed this through the wall does not sound easy.
Oh,
to
true. Yeah, making it pretty is quite challenging, but yeah, but if you're just wanting it to get internet as quickly as possible, it's very quick. But yeah, it did take us several hours and probably a couple trips to the hardware store to like embed it nicely alongside the house. But
just to progress the journey, so we had Comcast. I think you were paying $150 towards the tail end of it there.
Yeah.
We went to Starlink. Now we're paying $100.
correct.
And then we had Starlink. And things were good for like, what, 6 months for you?
Yeah, a little bit longer. Probably the remainder of 2021, it was just getting progressively better. I got it
got better.
Yeah, it was improving throughout all of 2021. It started pretty bumpy at first. Like the first week, it was like buffering just when watching movies, which was
Ooh.
quite frustrating. I was like, this is not a complicated task, and it's struggling to do that. But after a few days, it stabilized and got more calm. And then we were like, okay, so we can watch our shows on this. And the live streaming was a little bumpy. Video calls were a little bumpy. But as the year went on, it got to the point where like in OBS, when I would do my live streams for like an hour and a half, at first it would drop like 3% of frames. So just every once in a while it would dip down and recover, which is a little annoying, kind of frustrating when you're trying to talk to people, but it was tolerable. Near the end of the year, it was less than 1%. It was like almost no frame drops. There were a couple streams I remember where there was zero. Like it was completely fine, perfectly stable. Like when I unboxed the iPhone 13 and a new iPad mini. That was like an hour and a half long stream. There was 0 frame drops, which was awesome.
That's sweet. What speeds did you go from? So you're on Xfinity. What speeds were you getting there, and what were you getting with Starlink?
So yeah, that was probably the weirdest part. Was I care about upload above all else because I don't even play that many games, so download is not super useful to me at all. But in order to get the 30 to 35 megabit upload on Comcast, you had to get the gigabit plan, which was like 1,000 down. I don't think I ever saw him hit 1,000 down, but it was 800, 900. And when I went to Starlink, it was definitely a huge downgrade in terms of download. So if that matters to you, it's a terrible option. But at first I was getting over 100 typically, maybe 150. And near the end of 2021, it was consistently going over 200, more like 250 pretty consistently.
And this is download, right?
Yeah, download was in the hundreds. Upload never got too far above 20. So it was not substantially better upload, but I was willing to tolerate it because I knew that it was in beta and that was early Starlink and they were not at their max capacity. Like they said, we're hoping for speeds to double and we're going to improve the network with more satellites. So part of the reason I was willing to hold out with Starlink was for so long was because they had a clear path, or at least to me, an obvious path of here's how we're going to make it better and here's how it will improve over time. Comcast wasn't claiming anything. They're like, we're not making any kind of effort to make this faster. It is what it is, and that's what you're going to get. So I had a lot of hope, and I was wishful thinking that over time Starlink will get faster. And there were a few times near the end of the year where it started hitting 30, 40 megabits up. So I was like, okay, comparable upload speed, costs less, and also I'm a huge fan of SpaceX. If they had a Patreon, I would probably support.
So you're making it sound wonderful. Why switch to T-Mobile home internet if everything was on the up and up?
Well, that's when 2022 hit. Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. So we went on a trip to Puerto Rico in January, and as soon as we got back, it was substantially worse. Worse than it was on day one in 2021. Like, wow. And they had something that was kind of ticking me off was they had dropped the beta terminology. So when I signed up, it was still considered the better than nothing beta. Now they had dropped that and just said, nope, this is official service. This is how it works. The upload speeds were not as good. They were around 10. The consistency of the upload was terrible. The live streams used to be like 1% or less frame drops per stream. Now it was like 10% frame drops, 15% frame drops, which is basically unwatchable. People just could not tolerate it. Download speeds seemed fine. Those didn't seem to be fluctuated too much from what I recall. But again, I don't care too much about download, so it's hard to remember. But I kept communicating. Customer service did improve. Like when I first joined the beta program, there was no one you could really reach out to. I mean, they would say like, reach out to this email address, and you would maybe get a response in a couple months. It was not like a instantaneous because they're a startup, and SpaceX had never really had customers before. So
you're giving them a lot of slack. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah,
for a multi-billion-dollar.
It was a beta product, right?
Well, he's saying. Well, here's the thing. He's saying startup the world, but continue.
Well, they were just starting up the company that happened to be a little bit bigger than some of the smaller startup.
That's like calling Dish Wireless a startup, even though it's funded by Dish.
It is a startup.
Okay. Sorry, I just had to bust your chops. Continue.
It's fine because I am a fanboy. There's no denying that. So I was absolutely willing to let Starlink treat me like crap just because I like SpaceX.
Still cheaper than what Comcast was charging you, and you're actually supporting a company you like. So this seems like a pretty huge win. But the service takes a pretty steep dive, it sounds like, in 2022.
Right.
What was the final straw? What led you to look elsewhere?
I think it was well, like I said, the customer support was improving. So now in early 2022, you could get a hold of someone in online chat pretty quickly. And I just said, hey, what's happening? Because this used to not be this way. Like I was using it for live streaming and it was getting by. You know, if it would have stayed the way it was in the last quarter of 2021, I could have kept going easy.
Well,
I would have kept it, but it was getting so bad I couldn't even live stream, and the speeds were getting worse. So I just said, "What's changed? Is something wrong with my hardware? Did I do something? Or like, what do I need to do?" And they basically told me everything's working normally. It's like nothing's wrong on our end.
ooh, that's a
So
red flag.
once they said that, I was like, okay, I don't think there's any hope of this changing. I think it's sucky for my use case. You know, I was reading, I've been fairly active on the subreddit for Starlink, and all these people are so happy they're getting it because they ramped up production of this cheaper unit that they can scale up a lot faster. So there were way more people on the network. My theory is that's why mine got so much worse, is because they went from like 60,000 users to 300,000 users within a few months with the same number of satellites. So I was like, maybe this type of internet is just not cut out for a content creator like me. You know, if I was the house I grew up at for the first 18 years of my life, there was no Comcast. You couldn't get Xfinity there, and barely any cell coverage. So that I grew up in a place where we had to deal with the dial-up AT&T like abysmal service. I did not upload at my childhood home. I had to drive to my friend's house to upload content, and I actually lived there for several months as a full-time creator. And the main reason I moved out of my childhood home was just so I could get to a place with decent internet. That was the driving force.
I know that journey well.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I grew up in a small town, like 600 people small, and I'm 25 and I got to experience true dial-up. Credit to your joy when Verizon DSL came out.
Oh yeah,
I know that story that you're talking about, but
yeah, it is abysmal. It is
circling around. So Starlink, we're done. We're fed up.
Yeah.
Why pick T-Mobile next as the next option? Like, what about T-Mobile fixed wireless was like, you know what?
It was half price. I mean, that's pretty important, right? Because it was $100 for Starlink. T-Mobile's coming in $50 flat.
So it was not available when Starlink first told me I was available or ready. They said, "Hey, we can ship you one if you order now." That was not a thing. So basically, I was fed up with Comcast, and I would have jumped at the first alternative as soon as there was one. And at that time, T-Mobile home internet was not really a thing. That came later in 2021 when I started hearing people in the comments bring it up. They were like, "Have you tried this? Have you tried this?" So Verizon home internet's not a thing where I am. So that's by far the most common suggestion I got when I complained, was people are like, "Have you tried this?" Or most people are like, "Just get fiber."
Like that's the solution here.
Yes,
I would have already. Like we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, this I relate to people like Dennis, and I grew up with the slow internet, so that's why I like covering it and talking about these options, because I know that not everybody lives in a major city with fiber, and I relate to those people and I feel for those people. So I was just like, okay, if Starlink has proven to be pretty bumpy and people are saying, I was watching reviews and checking out what people were saying about T-Mobile home internet, and I was hearing mostly good things. It was still pretty bumpy though. There were people saying signal's inconsistent and you're deprioritized, and
you did not see our review of it.
We didn't really make one, Dennis,
well,
to be fair.
Okay. Short side tangent. I'm sorry. I actually flew out to see Stetson in Colorado, and while we were there, we tested out the internet.
So I got it. And I guess for context, I have symmetrical gigabit fiber. And so we ended up not using it because I was like, why would I connect to this when I have fiber?
Let's clarify a detail. Stetson refused to let me use the beautiful municipal fiber, mind you, from Nextlight. Instead, we used T-Mobile's home internet.
We did try it out, so this is our opportunity.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Instead we used T-Mobile's home internet, and I will just say the things that I was looking for are definitely not the things that I think the average user would look for. I was doing like trace routes. I was doing like
we did an extensive
loaded and unloaded,
test.
Latency test, buffer bloat test. I was looking at the QoS settings inside the gateway. TLDR though, my biggest problem with T-Mobile home internet, and I'll be curious to see if you've experienced this problem, is that packet loss. Packet loss was a massive issue. So
I think the second issue was that I think we got the gateway to overheat and shut off.
Oh yeah, that happened too.
And that's what I was.
seeing a lot in the reviews is people kept saying they overheat, and I do live in a fairly warm climate, so I figured if overheating's a problem, that's definitely something I'm gonna experience. Because
Granted, we had the trash can one, not the new
right.
square one that you have.
So when it first came out, that was the only one. So I was following the news on it, and I kept my eye on it because I was like, well, it sounds kind of cheap, and it's, I used T-Mobile towers in my area, not the T-Mobile service, but Mint is piggybacking off of T-Mobile. But I was like, the speeds are okay here. They weren't, honestly, at the time, they weren't better than Starlink was on my phone, but that's changed. It's gotten better over time. And as soon as the new gateways came out, I figured, okay, this is like their second attempt. This is their iteration on the hardware. So they've probably figured it out. Maybe it's working more reliably now. And then the Starlink getting way worse kind of motivated me. Okay, I should at least try this because they said it's contract free, $50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So I was like, well, I'll at least get a video out of it, even if it sucks.
Yeah,
it's worth trying. And then after trying it out, I was like, okay, yeah, I can live with this. I can work with it. So
what was the performance you were initially seeing with T-Mobile Home Internet?
I remember being really impressed on day one. It was a lot of talking with T-Mobile and getting them on the phone, and there was a lot of.
I remember the reboot because you posted the setup, and it doesn't give you any feedback. It just gives you a random error, and the reason that you were getting that was because it was downloading firmware updates, if I remember correctly.
Right. I was like, why can't they just say firmware update? Why is that so complex? I don't know.
And if I remember correctly, I think you were getting like 300 down and like 50 up, I think is what you got.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the speeds once they started showing up, but I was really paranoid because when I first set it up, it kept crashing after 10 minutes. It would just shut off and say unplug it and plug it back in. So I was like, I hope this works. But yeah, once it was stable, I was instantly sold on it because it was way more consistent and way faster than Starlink was, and for half the price, and now less than half the price. Starlink prices went up after I canceled. So
yeah, 110 now. And then they got that new $500 or $300 tier or something like that.
I think it's $500
tier. Yeah.
Whoa.
I haven't seen anyone get it though. I've been looking. I want to see someone review premium or I think they changed it to Starlink Business or something. I think they should have called it Starlink Enterprise because that sounds more spacey.
Yeah. So let's talk about the present though, because you did a video about this. T-Mobile Internet hasn't been sunshines and rainbows either. Tell the audience, what's the present looking like?
Well, it kind of had a giant drop off the deep end because it was doing great for like 2 months straight, plenty fast speeds, very stable live streams, and I thought, okay, I fixed this whole problem. My live streams are good again, all done. I'll just stay here forever. And then it was like, I think April 24th, that evening, we were watching a movie or a show, and it just started buffering. The internet went completely off entirely. And I was like, well, this is weird. Maybe there's some fluke going on. I tried resetting it, didn't help. And I was like, well, maybe they're doing something weird testing wise on a Sunday night. So we'll just go to sleep, I guess. And we finished the show on the phone, and maybe it'll be fixed in the morning. I woke up on a normal Monday, which is when I typically start my full workday, and it was still off, wasn't coming back. I reached out to them. They told me it was going to be like 5 days of maintenance. They were like, it's just going to be off for the next 5 days. And I was like, oh,
my business relies on this. Like,
right.
That's kind of huge.
Yeah. No, I was kind of ticked off. I was like, I mean, I get that there needs to be maintenance, but at least give me a warning, like give me a heads up so I can prepare for it.
Hey, we're doing maintenance. You may want to go to a local coffee shop for internet for this week or something,
Yeah. Especially because I see internet like as a utility these days. I don't see it as like a fun
100%.
subscription. It's like a mandatory thing for people's livelihoods and communication, and security systems now are so internet based. It's like, this is not like Disney Plus or Netflix. This is a utility. Like, people need this.
You're speaking to my socialist side.
Right. Well, I mean, like, imagine if your power, I know it's not the exact same thing, but imagine if your power company just shut off your power for 5 days and they were like, oh, sorry.
Oh, I know what that's like when I grew up in my rural house. But anyway, so T-Mobile Internet took a nosedive. Okay, so you're down for 5 days.
I think I saw you tweet this, and I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good. That usually doesn't happen.
So did you go the
Luckily-
whole 5 days without it, or?
Well, it started coming back because 3 days in, I was running out of data on my phone. Because normally I don't use that much cell data. So
Wait, was your phone working? Like, because it's using T-Mobile. So
it was, which I thought was bizarre. I was
right,
like, why is the phone fine? But
so
not
the phone was fine, but the internet wasn't working, and they're using the exact same towers.
That's what I thought. Well, someone told me that the home internet might use different antennas.
It's
than
not
the
using
phone.
different.
It's not. If the only benefit of the doubt we could give is that the T-Mobile home internet was provisioned for a specific tower to lock onto and didn't want to find another one, and that's the only benefit of the doubt we can give. But
Okay.
continue. So 3 days
Yeah.
go by. You're using your Mint Mobile. I think you have 35 gigs to spare with
Correct.
data. What happens next?
So I had just about finished uploading, and I was like, you know what? If I can't get work done because of this outage, then I'm gonna ask for a refund. Like, I don't know what I'm paying for. So I called them and just said, hey, I was bluffing, but I was like, I'm gonna take my business elsewhere if this doesn't get fixed. So they said,
I don't have any
okay, hold
options,
on,
but
we'll
I'm still
refresh
gonna
your...
leave.
Yeah. They said, we'll refresh your gateway and all that. And then they gave me a full refund for the month of May, which I was grateful for. So they just said, all right, you don't have to pay anything till June. So I was like, well, thank you. And it was back for a while. I don't know what changed. I was like, why can't you just do this from day one? But they're like, okay, it's working now. Hope that fixes your problem. But it was still spotty. It would still cut out for like 5 minutes every 20 minutes. It would still buffer when watching a movie or a show. So I don't know exactly what they did, but I'm guessing they tethered it to a different tower and maybe it couldn't do that automatically. I don't know what was wrong with it. But yeah, it was spotty, but back. It wasn't good enough to live stream with. But it was enough to like watch some shows and upload a couple videos, which was pretty good for a couple of days. But then it got back to nothing again not long after.
Yeah. We got a highlight comment from Austin's Tech. Austin, thank you for the support. We really appreciate it. Within the last 90 days, T-Mobile has had at least 3 outages that have lasted 8 hours per day.
Yikes.
Glad I have Xfinity.
We must live in the same area then. Sounds like my place.
So now we get to the present where you're in this little dilemma. You ask the question to your audience and you ask, what should you do next? I want to know, what are you thinking about doing next? Are you going to stick it out with T-Mobile? You going to go back to Comcast? Because you tried Starlink, and I know you couldn't get back on with them because they're at capacity. So what comes next for you?
Yeah, right now I'm basically crossing my legs and fingers and praying that T-Mobile stays consistent. It's definitely been better than it was at the end of April. I live streamed with it publicly yesterday, and it dropped a couple of times, but not too much. Not like full off, just down. So I have a certain bit rate for my live streams, and it was dipping below to the point where, luckily, OBS has a setting where it kind of adjusts the bit rate depending on the internet speed, which is basically what most video calls do. And it drops a lot to the point of it's very noticeable to the end customer. It's like super compressed and pixelated.
You mean like right now?
They're like,
it just happened
that
right
was-
now as you were
That was
talking.
such a great example.
just like a
It's like literally,
That's
as
brilliant.
you were gesturing, it just got more and more pixelated. It's fine now.
Hey, listen, that's that T-Mobile AI listening. It knew its cue.
that's impressive. Honestly, I'm amazed. We called it Starlinking back when I was on Starlink.
But listen, I gotta ask. Like, I know you don't like Comcast because of the pricing and everything like that, but based off your story, you should have been gone long enough from them that you could totally get a new customer promo. And new customer promos usually are pretty sick. I think you can probably get. I'm gonna assume gig is probably $80 out where you're at, and even with unlimited data, that's like $25 if you rent their gateway. So you're talking like 95. Or no, wait, I did math wrong.
I was comparing
105.
because I was thinking I might have to switch, and it was you're not far off. It was a bit more than what you were suggesting, but yeah, where I was, it was like $100 a month for the highest upload tier they offered, and that was before unlimited. And the problem is that they're also contract heavy, and I really don't like the contract stuff because I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is with most of your stories so far, as long as you have 20 meg upload, and it's consistent, things sound like they work great. And Comcast did just recently up their speeds across the board for upload tiers now. So the lowest is like 10 meg now, which is delicious. Because it used to be.
Wait. Rewind, Dennis. 10 meg is delicious?
Well,
excuse me.
Hear me out for a second.
It's probably fine for most.
Considering the fact that the lowest tier used to be 3, actually the lowest tier used to be 1 on prepaid, then that became 3, then 5, now it's 10.
That's gross.
10 is a great place.
You try and upload a video at 10 megabits per
Stetson,
second.
if you remember, when I was in the apartment when we first started this, I was rocking a nice, cool 300 by 10, if you remember.
Yeah.
So
you came from slow speeds.
So, no, like, anyway, point of my story is that you can get, I think, you're in the West, right? I think it's called Superfast out there. It's whatever Blast is out here in the Northeast. It's like 600 by 20 now. That could probably be a good pick for you. And then unlimited data is like $25. If you get the X5 complete, it should be $25 unless it's something different there. You would probably be talking about being at around no more than like $70-$80.
I think you're right. Somewhere around there. I mean, I'm definitely not in love with 20, considering from the beginning, it's especially when I have proof of T-Mobile working well. Like,
yeah, but 20 stable upload, lower latency, and the fact that you have a gateway. In the fact that you can use your own like router and stuff like that, because you could put the gateway into bridge mode and actually set up some QoS settings are all big perks. Because I'm going to assume you've been using the default router that T-Mobile gives you, correct?
Correct. Because I figured that would be most people's experience, so I wanted to.
Which has no QoS settings in it, by the way.
Right. Well, I'm not really a settings kind of guy with that kind of stuff anyway.
Well,
but
you should get into being a settings kind of guy, and we'll get that super chat in a second. You should get into being a settings kind of guy because you can set up like QoS to prioritize your live streaming computer and its traffic over every other bit of traffic on the network, like your security cameras that I know you said you have.
Yeah.
Instead of those getting the same level of treatment, the packets for your stream will always get priority.
I do put the computer on the 5 gigahertz network and nothing else.
Yeah, but it's not the same. So you're at the end of the day, think of it like a kitchen sink drain. At the end of the day, regardless of how you're getting to that kitchen sink drain, all the liquids are going to spin in the same order. QoS basically allows you to quite literally have like a separate drain in the sink just for your computer packets. And that's probably a terrible analogy, but hopefully I got the point across. But
I get it. That makes sense.
Santiago, thank you as always for supporting the show, coming in with the $9.99 super chat. We are definitely doing well. We have an absolute legend on the show named Drew, which going to give a quick shout out to his channel. It's Tailosive Tech on YouTube. He makes great content.
Yeah, it's linked in the description.
Well, thank you.
Put it in the chat too. We also got to thank Austin's Tech again, coming in clutch. Austin said, I reached out to Carlos and got an AT&T Los mobile line, $65 per month. I'm saying the best $65 per month I've spent in a long time. On T-Mobile had no backup towers. So yeah, Los Mobile is kind of like a provider. They have some pretty good hotspot plans, and you could get, I think it's like 2 terabytes for $65 a month, which is pretty good if you have good AT&T coverage in your area.
That's a good question.
Thank you, Austin.
Yeah, those plans are. You got to talk to Carlos.
Yeah, you got to talk to Carlos is the bottom line for that.
Yeah.
But, so wow, that's kind of a predicament you're in. Like, do you go back to big cable? Do you stick it out with T-Mobile and hope it gets better?
Yeah, I really didn't like the whole installation, and I don't like the business model. And if I have to go with a big internet company, I'd rather spend as little as possible, which is what's so tempting about T-Mobile is I really like that price. Because I've yet to see anybody offer anything close to undercutting that. That I know of.
Do you know how
Drew?
good Verizon is in your area?
I don't. I assume it's fine. I was on Verizon before Mint, and I don't remember having any issues, but I've checked pretty much weekly to see if they brought the Verizon home internet to my area, and I know they haven't, so I keep trying.
It might be possible to enter an address that's compatible and get the equipment sent to a different address so you can utilize it
That is 100% a thing,
interesting.
but the only problem is you have to actually go to the address on file to activate the equipment first before you can bring it back to the not address.
Oh, yeah, that'd be kind
But
of
that
tricky.
is a workaround. I was more gonna say, Drew, when you were talking about pricing, you were saying you were talking about no one undercuts $50. I was like, competition does that actually,
Mm,
because out here in Pittsburgh, where Comcast actually has real competition,
yeah.
they've been doing a promo like perpetually now for like $30 for 300 meg, and they were actually doing $20 for 300 meg at one point in like super competitive spots for 300
Ooh,
meg.
wow.
And it's stacked with their mobile discount, so you got an extra $10 off that. So $10 per month for 300 meg when you got their mobile service.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
amazing. I need
yeah.
that. I,
You need no. What you need is competition. That's what you need.
right. Well, I can't give too much away, but all I could say is I live in a very rural area, so there's not much
Yes,
competition, unfortunately. I
yes.
wish there
That
was.
tends to happen. And also, I'll just say earlier before we change gears, you know how you were talking about how you empathize with people that lived in rural America. Me
Yeah.
and Stetson don't have that problem anymore because Stetson has fiber. And when I bought my house, I made the one most important thing I was looking for was an area that had FiOS
Mm,
and Comcast available. And I'm glad that I did because FiOS for the first 6 months that I had it was actually the worst internet I ever used. The uptime
really?
was the uptime was horrendous. It was like
Oh, wow.
90% uptime.
Ooh,
And it just came down to the fact that basically the node that I was hooked up to was basically congested and there was issues. Eventually a unicorn happened, a maintenance tech came out and just fixed it, and that solved a lot of my problems. And I finally got like an actual tech to do my install proper. Now it's
gotcha.
been rock solid.
Good,
The
good.
o- the only caveat to have against it is that Verizon actually straight up just censors parts of the internet. What they'll do is for like different
What?
like yeah, so it's most common for like piracy sites, but not necessarily always. They actually do like big broad strokes. So like
Like
there's a
AT&T.
there's a like I'm blanking on the term that I want right now, but basically there's this thing called DDoS
Yeah.
guard. It's a they host like a bunch of different IP addresses in like a big block.
Hmm.
Instead of Verizon taking like a scalpel approach like most ISPs would if this comes up to block a specific domain to a website,
Hmm.
they just straight up block the whole block of IP addresses that belong to DDoS guard, which there
Um,
are legitimate services that use DDoS guard, so they all just go to a void.
wow. I
Um,
see.
and then you can't access the websites over Verizon Fios. Instead, you have to use a VPN to try to get around that, unless in certain circumstances we do other things. For example, I work from home.
Yeah.
I know a few other people that work from home, and a lot of companies use Cisco Anytime VPN. I don't know if you ever heard
Hmm.
of it. Well,
I think I've heard.
TLDR, Cisco Anytime VPN does not work on Verizon Fios.
Oh,
So
I see.
yeah, so I actually have two internet connections. I have Fios, which is my daily, and side note, when you're talking about data usage, Drew,
Yeah.
I used 30 terabytes to test how unlimited it was. So 30
Just a
TV.
drop in the bucket for
Well, with
Dennis
fiber,
over
that's
there.
nothing, right? You could do that easily.
Yeah, we're already on the roadmap to using over 70 for this month.
Oh my God.
Yeah, anyway, so Fios is the primary, and then I actually have Comcast as the redundant connection / work computer connection.
Yeah. See, if
Oh,
I had an unlimited budget, I would just have all the providers at one. I'd just keep them all.
unlimited
Yeah.
budget. Well, 65 plus 65 plus plus 50, so I'm basically coming in at what you're paying for just Starlink at that point.
115.
Yeah, that's
Dennis, I don't
yeah.
know. He
That is
swindles
Starlink
the
now.
internet service providers. Pittsburgh's got all the discounts. All right.
Right.
We got some questions from Patreon supporters. First one was, how's T-Mobile home internet? Any improvements?
Since it came back, I've noticed much faster download. They sent me a new gateway after they were convinced my old one was fried. I don't know if it was, but they said, return the old one, we'll send you a new one. I got the new one all hooked up and I've clocked it over 500 down now. So half a
That's
gig,
awesome.
which is pretty sweet. But again, I don't utilize it for much. The downside is the upload doesn't seem as strong. It used to get 40, 50 pretty consistently. Now upload is more like 20, 30, which isn't as good as it used to be. But
Quick question: have you
Mhm.
thought about combining your internet connections to get more upload for you?
I've talked to my friends about that because I have a friend in Brownsville that basically has to do that for his line of work because they work out in the middle of nowhere, but they need to live stream 24/7. So he's talked about doing that kind of thing. It's just not really in my budget, basically.
Budgeting is the
to
key
get 2
word.
of them.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking you could get 2 separate T-Mobile home internets and then use a piece of hardware to combine that connection.
Yeah.
So that way you could get ideally double the upload.
That'd be interesting. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right. Next question was, what is your least favorite Apple product out of everything Apple has made?
Ooh, there's so many to choose from. Like, what do you think? Should I say an all time or right now? Like what they currently still
Do
sell?
Do both.
Okay. Right now, probably the HD Apple TV. I don't know why that thing is still
yeah.
$150. And
the product is fine. The price point is what kills it.
That's true. It's more of a price problem than it is a product problem.
Yeah,
I don't know. The 2022 to sell a dedicated box that can't do 4K when we have 4K sticks now, like,
are you kidding me?
So what's the all-time then?
Ooh, there's a lot to choose from. There's probably some terrible ones I wasn't around for.
I know what mine is.
Okay.
Dennis, what's yours?
The stand, the $1,000
Oh,
stand.
the Pro stand.
That's a nice stand, Dennis. I dare you to find another piece of aluminum machined to that precision and capable of magnetically mounting
and then
a Pro Display
actually,
XDR.
I have one other one too that I really hate. The new displays that just came out, the ones that have the non-removable power cable.
Oh yeah.
You can remove it. You just need like a special tool that only Apple has.
Do it if you're strong.
The only thing that's good about it is the actual display. Everything else about it's horrible, including the fact that they force you to spend an extra $400 just to have a stand that actually allows you to adjust the height. Like, come on, come on. And remember, by the way,
our answers are always dependent on it was
price.
Just overpriced.
Yeah,
it's always a price problem. I'm trying to think of one that wasn't a price problem. It was just bad.
For me, I'm gonna go
Magic
iPad,
Mouse.
iPad Pro, I think, and I would say iPad Pro just because the interface, like when I use macOS, it's so fast. The keyboard shortcuts, switching between things, like interface, I love it so much. And iPad OS, it's just there's no escape key. I'm like tapping on things. I get notifications and I'll accidentally tap the split screen view button and like
right.
It's just I don't know. That's my least favorite product I would say right now.
I want to say the Siri remote itself. Not only
not
only was it expensive, but even if you ignored the price, it was just poorly made. Like it was hard to use. It had unnecessary glass. It would shatter, and it was uncomfortable. And I tried to get used to it for years, and I just couldn't.
I'm gonna top you though. This is not based off price, but the Magic Mouse has to be the worst designed engineered mouse possible. Who puts a charger on the bottom of the mouse so you can't use it while it's charging? And
my only problem is that's my favorite mouse I've ever used.
Are you being sarcastic
it's
or
so
serious?
True. No, it's so true because you get multi-touch gestures on a mouse, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Are you kidding me? You guys never heard about multiple buttons on the side? Like buttons
Dennis, have you tried a multi-touch mouse?
I have used the Magic Mouse. I've used them many a time. And the only thing they're good for is being a point and click for PowerPoint presentations, and that is it.
They're actually really good for that.
For my workflow, I do a lot of obviously jump cuts, and I'm constantly scrolling side to side and up and down.
It's so fast.
And it's so fast on a Magic Mouse compared to any other. I've tried the Logitech mice. I've tried
MX Master.
Yeah, I've tried it with others, and I cannot get as quick as I am with the Magic Mouse. So I agree the charging method is dumb. I'm in favor of getting rid of Lightning across everything. I don't care what the product is. It shouldn't have Lightning. But that top design, I'm just too comfortable with, and I'm so used to it that I just...
But Drew, you're missing the point. I don't care about it being a Lightning. It could have been micro USB for all I care. It's the fact that it's on the actual bottom of the mouse, so you can't use it while it's charging.
I do only have to charge it once every like 6 weeks, which is why I'm willing to put up with bad charging if the battery life is that long.
Until your battery's shot, because batteries are consumable expense, and replacing it on a mouse is...
I've been using the same mouse for like 5 years now.
Oh wow. Okay.
Dennis, yeah, the
Still-
mice are strong. Mice are
It
strong.
still lasts a long time.
Side note, Austin Tech coming in with another super chat. He says, with Xfinity, I pay $124 a month for 600 by 25 through upload through Comcast DNS. He used Cloudflare to bypass that DNS. After that, his uploads increased to around 75 megabits per second.
Interesting.
What?
Very curious.
That
Very
is
interesting.
definitely very curious because I use Google DNS for all my stuff with Cloudflare as a secondary, and I've never seen it affect my upload speeds with Comcast. That's intriguing.
Sounds too good to be true, but
Yeah.
he super chatted, so
Or-
it must be true.
Or it could be one of the areas. You know what? This is actually a good little touch point. Remember how you were saying at the time Comcast wasn't talking about upgrades for you? Well, Comcast
Yeah.
has been very vocal about their DOCSIS 4.0 roadmap to 10 gig. Have you been paying attention to any news related to that by chance?
I haven't. All I know is I've reached out to them and asked like, what are your uploads? Because their website doesn't say what their upload is. So I reached
Yeah,
out.
their
they
website's
do
terrible.
hide.
It's
They do hide
ridiculous.
that. They do hide that.
They-
But
They
look,
hide
so I
it because
reached
they're
out and I
ashamed
said-
how bad it is.
Yeah, it's like, here's my area. What are the uploads with this plan in this area? And it was not different from what it was before. But I hope that changes.
well, look, the reason why I was asking is because when I was on Sneemo with Tech, he's a fellow YouTuber like us. There was someone that commented in the chat that apparently in Denver, and Pete confirmed this by the way, Stetson.
Mhm.
Apparently in Denver, Comcast is rolling out a 2 gigabit per second tier download with
Wow.
I think it was 150 on the upload.
See, we don't
And I
need
think
faster
the-
download.
And I
Okay,
think
we
the
just
price
need upload.
Yeah,
and I think the pricing for it's going to be like 119 plus whatever other add-ons.
that sounds great. There was some tier I was reading about on the website that was 2 gig up and down.
Oh, you're talking about Gig Pro, and it's
Yeah.
actually 3 gig symmetrical. It's $320 because you have to rent the Jupiter switch. We actually had a person on from Pittsburgh that actually has it.
That's when I was like,
Drew,
eh,
that
300.
listen, hear me out real quick. That internet is not your ordinary fiber. That is like a straight up Metro Enterprise fiber line, like your dedicated fiber.
It better
It-
be. It's
it
the price
has-
of rent in some countries.
It comes. It's
Yeah.
actually. Hey, listen, for a Metro line, it's actually cheap because if you actually get like enterprise fiber, you're talking thousands for that kind of speed. But listen,
Oh yeah.
it comes with 2 static IP addresses, and it's actually like closer to like 5 gigs worth of bandwidth because
Wow.
you got your 3 gig main provision line, which when it's over provision is like 4 gig, and they give
Uh-huh.
you a secondary gigabit like RJ45 connection, and you can like use that for other stuff. So it is not your normal person internet. No one actually needs it, I would say.
That's the
agree.
key point right there. Let's emphasize that. No one actually needs it.
But as a nerd who respects and appreciates it, I'm glad, sir. And actually, the guy that we had on, I'm blanking on his name from Pittsburgh, and I'm really sorry for being bad with names, Stetson. If you remember his name, please help.
I also forget.
Well, he
So-
hosts actual
He sounds
servers.
memorable.
Well,
Yeah.
he hosts actual servers, and for him, he needs it because he's actually hosting servers, which breaks most terms of services for
Sure.
most ISPs.
That's fair.
And he has a speed test server as well, actually. Like
Oh,
he
really?
hosts his own speed test server.
Uh-huh.
But anyway,
Well,
do you have any more
if I had-
Patreon questions? Oh, sorry.
If I had unlimited
Uh,
budget, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think we had some interesting takes here. The butterfly keyboard as the worst Apple product ever.
Mm.
I think that's a solid answer. I
That's up
worked
there.
at my on-campus computer repair center, and people came in with broken keyboards all the time. And even if there was like a speck of dust or like a crumb, we had to basically replace the whole top case. Like that was the only way to fix that.
Wow.
Someone said
Yeah,
the touch bar.
I'm going to come across as quite the apple sheep on this show because I despite ignoring the quality control problems, which I wasn't a fan of, I did enjoy the butterfly keyboard. I bought a
It
MacBook
was
with
pretty
it,
nice.
and I enjoyed it, and I also loved the touch bar, and I miss it.
Controversial.
Austin came up with yet another super chat, Stetson.
Wow.
He said it's
Thank you,
fiber
Austin.
where
Thank you.
he's at. They limit upload speeds. The only way he found out was directly monitoring his Mac OS when he was uploading a 10 gigabyte to YouTube.
Interesting.
Gotcha.
Interesting. All right. I'm going to pivot a little bit. This is a best phone plans podcast. So I want to
yeah.
talk about your phone plan. True.
Mhm.
So what were you on before and what caused you to switch to Mint Mobile?
Well, we were on Verizon basically since my first phone. My family was on Verizon pre-smartphone, like with the flip phone days.
Yeah.
And I think, oh yeah, I forgot this whole thing happened. So we ended up in around 2014 or so when they started. For a long time, Verizon didn't offer an unlimited plan, but when they first announced it, I convinced my mom. I was like, we need this plan because Verizon's pretty fast at our house, but our Wi-Fi options are limited to just AT&T, and AT&T sucks. So I was like, let's get unlimited data on our Verizon phones. That's our Wi-Fi now.
That's smart. That's really
And
smart.
she was like, okay, it's quite a bit. I don't remember how much it was because I was pretty young, but it was up there. I think it was like $250-$300 a month for everybody to have it. But when we did get it, it was like, oh dang, I can actually upload videos and live stream from my house. I used to have to drive to my friend's house every time I wanted to post something. But my phone was just hot all the time. There was constantly like 3 or 4 devices because I had an Apple TV, I had my iMac and an iPad all connected to my phone's hotspot all day. And it was just plugged in. I totally fried that battery. You couldn't check the battery health back then, but it was bad, I'm sure. And it was just plugged in constantly. That was all my data. And back then there was no limit on hotspot data. You could use infinite.
This really was the perfect plan.
You should have kept it.
It was a godsend. The reason we didn't keep it was because once I moved out, my parents and everybody still had unlimited data, but we looked at our data consumption and it was very low. We were not using it anymore once I moved to a place with dedicated Wi-Fi that was Comcast, so it was much faster than Verizon was. I was like, well, I'm paying for this. And, I was reimbursing for my line to my mom. I was just like, yeah, I'll pay you each month for this. And then she was like, I don't think we're using this, and it's costing us $100 a month. So let's try to downgrade. So we went to I don't know what that is. Get out of here. It's bugs. It's T-Mobile bugs. But Verizon, we went to the store and that's when I lost a lot of respect for them because they were trying to convince my mom. At the time, they don't have this anymore, but at the time, they had dedicated 5G plans. So it was like, you don't have 5G, but you should pay extra to get this 5G tier. And no one in the family had a 5G phone. They kept trying to upsell her on it. And I just said, no, stop. Like, we're not doing that. They did the whole car salesman approach. This bad boy can fit so many 5G plans in it. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. We were like, we're not using that much data. Just give us a cheaper plan because my mom and my dad just are trying to save some money here. And so we had, I think, like 6 lines all sharing some ungodly amount of data. It was like 2 gigs, I think. It was absurdly low, but it was just because everyone wanted to cut the bill back because it wasn't being used anymore because my parents were moving and not going to be at that house anymore. So it was like, give us the cheapest plan possible, but it was a terrible plan. It was like 2 gigs shared between 6 people. I don't remember how much it was, but it was still way too much. And one of our family members said that they were shopping around for cheaper plans and they found out about Mint Mobile, which was this prepaid thing because a lot of our family was into like buy in bulk, buy at high volume and then use it at like Costco.
It's like Costco.
Runs.
Yeah, exactly.
So they were like, Mint Mobile has this idea where you pay for it a year at a time, and you can get a lower rate that way. And this was only costing them $15 a line. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of interesting. And looked into it and figured it was worth at least trying because we were still paying some. It was more than what Mint is. I don't remember what it was, but it was a lot for that Verizon plan. And I was like, I'm moving into my own place. I'm getting married. I don't think I need to keep being on my parents' plan anymore.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's move off. Let's do our own thing. And Mint sounded good. And I heard it from a family friend because they said they lived in the same area I did, and they said the coverage was good. So I was like, well, if it's good for you, it's probably going to be good for me. And tried it, downloaded, got the SIM, and I was very amazed, not just by the coverage, but by the simplicity of the account management. One thing I was extremely frustrated with on Verizon was how complex they make managing your phone lines. And
it's such a mess.
Yeah,
The
like
app,
the pins,
the website,
authorized account versus user account, and you have to know the security password for the authorized account to make changes to your account. And they just felt like their website was designed to confuse you out of your money. And I was like, there's more security measures to change my phone than there is my bank account. Like, my bank account has one password, whereas this is like, oh, what's this and what's this and what's their billing pin and what's this, and I'm noticing T-Mobile starting to do the same thing. But Mint was just like one line, one account, because that's the other thing is the big carriers always encourage these big family things. It's like, oh, it's the cost is way up here if it's just you, but if you get 4 other people, then it goes down. Whereas Mint was like, it's the same price whether there's 2 of you, 1 of you, and it was just me and my wife. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. We can have our own accounts with our own passwords, keep it real simple. And the account management was just so easy, and it felt normal. It's like how I would design it if I was designing one. So I was really happy about that, and happy with the signal. And I didn't know that we were doing road trips and traveling, and I wasn't noticing bad coverage in that many places. So I just figured it's worth a review, and I've been happy with it ever since.
Stetson, this is where you come in. Family plans, Mint Mobile.
Oh, yeah. Actually, Drew, you might be interested in this. They launched family plans.
I heard about it.
Just like Tuesday this week.
Yeah.
So if you are interested, you and your wife can actually, the accounts stay separate. And
Yeah.
all you do is you go into like create a family, you click, invite a family member, sends a text to your wife. She says accept. And you can manage all lines under one account and change plans if you need to. The real idea is it simplifies billing. So you can have one credit card that just pays everything for real families with kids and stuff. And what's also really nice is they made it so you pay quarterly for the service. So instead of doing like $360 up front for a year for 2 lines, that adds up to $720. You can just pay quarterly for that. And that really helps out families, especially if you have like four lines or 5 lines. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you probably don't need to do it, but if you wanted to maybe do quarterly instead of annual or whatever, it's a new option.
What I should clarify is I have probably abused to death the Mint Mobile referral program.
Oh,
dude, I think you should join their affiliate program. They have an actual affiliate program
every week.
you don't do
Really?
it. Why?
I just think the recommendation would be a little different if I was actually raking in money from it. But the credit,
How many
the credit
years
is a
of
different
service
thing.
do you have right now, Drew? That's my question. You've
What's
probably
that?
got like 10 years of service and credits.
Doesn't it cap at like 12 months? I thought.
It does. It does cap at what was it? 480. But I've seen them go over with certain promos, so you can get basically you can get 10 referrals per year, and then it doesn't make a difference if you get 20, 30, 40. But yeah, I think I tried to sign up for it at one point. I can't remember, but they had some weird thing that they didn't like that I submitted. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've tried, but I just, as a general rule, try not to do sponsorships on my channel because I'm trying to keep it transparent and honest. And I'm okay using referrals because anybody can. That's literally you don't have to be a content creator to refer people. I used the referral code from my family friend when I signed up, so they got credit for that. But the affiliate thing is when it starts to be like, okay, they're actually a source of income for me. So I feel like that could potentially, not necessarily, but it could potentially influence my opinion. I want to feel comfortable dissing on them if they do something I don't like.
Yeah, sure, 100%.
If they change something, or if I want to make a suggestion, I want to be able to say, this sucks, stop that. And if I sign some contract or start getting into some deals like that, I might be more worried about saying something bad. So
see, I'm pretty spicy by nature, so even when people support our channel through Stetson, I still fairly diss them. I think Stetson does Visible support our channel.
They do, yeah, absolutely.
And I absolutely diss the crud out of them. But
well, that's good. They're cool with it.
Well, look, remember how you were talking about when you were with Verizon, how you got tired of all the passwords and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I'm the guy that cares about security and actually says
Dennis wants more passwords.
All telecom companies suck at security. No, I don't want more. Okay, here's the thing. More passwords for the sake of more passwords is not what I want. In Dennis's ideal world, this is what things would look like, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you would have your account PIN or whatever to verify. Actually, in Dennis's ideal world, there would be no account PIN. Every time you call in to talk to someone, you would generate a randomly generated PIN that is unique to that phone call and time based.
Oh,
And then
wow.
and then also, when it comes to logging into your account, you would have a very sophisticated password at minimum 16 digits. And then you would do two-factor authentication on top of that. And then you would
Oh my
also
God.
have the option to prevent SIM swapping from happening over the phone and have to do it in store if you could have that option on an account, because SIM swapping
Wow.
scams are a huge issue. It's one of the reasons why you're seeing carriers ramp up port out protection, going into a 6-digit randomly generated code for port out pins instead of using the account password.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of important because, you were talking about your bank and making a joke, but if someone got my phone number, it would basically be the ruin of everything, because now you could reset my bank account. You can reset my crypto place that I keep my cryptocurrency. I won't name the site. You could do a lot of stuff, right? So
Sure.
I'm pro security, but Stetson, yeah, go ahead.
That's hilarious because I'm probably the exact opposite. I think we should have less passwords and less security.
Make it easier.
I
Manage
think
your
my
account,
phones
yeah.
and devices should know when they're at home and not ask for biometrics and passwords and stuff just by location, which I know opens up a huge can of worms for security. But I at least want it to be an option, especially if you live in a place like I do, where it's like, no, it's
No
not.
one's coming here. Yeah,
No
it's
one's
not an
coming here
issue.
and using my phone. No, like if you live in a busy city or an apartment building, no, that wouldn't be a good idea. But I'm like, if someone's in the house, I've got bigger problems than my.
Well, Drew, I have an answer for you. May I recommend a password manager like 1Password?
Oh, well, I kind of manage that stuff myself, but yeah, I know those things exist, but
No, that would solve your password issues, right? Because now you just have the 1Password, and your security is also improved because then you can randomly generate passwords. I actually have, believe it or not, Drew, I have over 450 different passwords.
Okay, well, you're saying this publicly now. People are gonna nail it down.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying they're all
That's
unique.
plenty.
Yeah.
No,
Sweet.
I have different passwords for each account, but I have an easy way of tracking them. But I just mean like the biggest technical difficulty I hear from grandparents and parents is not remembering
Oh
words
my
and
God, it's so
passcodes.
true.
I'm referring to the biometrics on the device, so I don't think 1Password would change anything there. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it wouldn't. I think
like
Android will do that. Like if you connect to a Bluetooth device, it'll be like, "Hey, do you want to turn off the password when you're connected to this?" And things
Yeah,
like
Right.
Samsung smartwatch also does that.
Yeah,
If you're paired.
like
Just
my
like
watch
Apple
will
Watch.
unlock when I unlock my phone if it's on my wrist, which I like. But yeah,
that's amazing.
I want it
One
to
of the greatest things
continue.
to ever happen.
Right. Like my Mac unlocks from my watch as well. So I try to tether them as much as I can, but there's still times where I'm just on the couch and I pick up my phone and I'm like, why do you need to check
Yeah, yeah.
who's gonna be here? It's me.
All right, I've got some questions actually about your Apple ecosystem. I know
Oh,
your
okay.
tech channel, you review a lot of Apple products, and you've done a great job of that. I
Thank
love
you.
your studio display and your Mac Studio coverage. With all of these products that kind of cycle through your workflow, what are you currently using now?
Right now, I've kept my M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro, which has been very useful for when working on trips. That's what I'm talking to you guys on. For my phone, it's a 13 Pro Max. I still have an iPad from 2018 because the
iPad Pro?
software. Yeah, it's a Pro. It's a 12.9.
Yeah, me too. It works great. Like no
Oh yeah,
problems.
that was the best one in my view.
I
It-
agree, 100%.
It peaked in 2018, and ever since then, they have not found any way to take advantage of the hardware with the OS.
Yep.
So I've tried the new ones, but I have not found any reason to. I mean, there's some cool, nifty features here and there, but nothing worth upgrading for. So I fully plan on keeping my iPad for another 5 years or whatever, because unless they change the OS, there's no reason for me to upgrade my iPad. But I have the Series 7, Apple Watch, and AirPods Pro, I guess. Everything Apple makes that I'm interested in, I have.
Sweet, sweet. And do you end up keeping the studio display? Or do you send that back?
I did not, just because it is very pricey for what it is. The fact that there's, no mini LED and there's no ProMotion. The ProMotion was a bigger deal for me just because I'm such a refresh rate junkie. I love That's why I've kept my iPad Pro for so long. It's 120 hertz. Now
120
my
hertz.
MacBook
It's like, yeah,
is
boom, everything
120
is like
hertz.
it. Yeah.
It's I've gotten so used to it now that as soon as I set it up and started using it, I instantly was like, "Oh, you're not 120, are you?" And I was like, "If I'm spending that kind of money on a monitor, I don't want to be making those kinds of compromises. Like, I could compromise with 60 if it was way cheaper, but it's not cheap. It's a $2,000 monitor, so I'm not gonna let little details like that slide. Is like, if you're spending that kind of money, everything's got to be up to standards, and that wasn't that wasn't my refresh rate standard, I guess.
Hey, Drew,
Yeah,
have you ever thought about testing out Android and trying out like Windows and like throwing things up for a little bit of a loop?
I have in the past. I think in 2020 I reviewed like 6 or 5 Android phones,
Wow.
and I used Windows for a couple of years back in when did they get 10? Because I got my PC when it was Windows 7, and
2016, I think, is when Windows 10 came out. Maybe
okay,
17.
it's been a while, but I had nightmarish issues with Windows 10 that scared me away for many years. Just with
Wow.
software instability and driver corruption, and I'm just the reason I'm such an Apple sheep is because I don't like working on my tech. I just want the tech to work. I just need it to be reliable and show up and
Well, there.
do what I expect. And I I bought a custom PC, and my friend built it, but he didn't need it anymore. And I was interested in trying Windows because my iMac was slowing down. So I tried it for a few years, and it was good for a while. But once Windows 10 came around, a lot of my apps became really unreliable, and I kept having corruption issues, and I was just I couldn't deal with the automatic updates, and so much kept changing on me when I needed to work. So that scared me away. But uh, I've I've not had that much hatred of Android whenever I try it. I can get by with it. I just don't like it as much as iOS because to me it's like marginal differences. Like, oh, you can do split screen multitasking here, or you can sideload this, or with iOS you can airdrop this, or get one camera feature here. To me, it's like all the hardware is pretty minor differences at the end of the day, but what makes a big difference is how they work together, how all of your hardware can work in conjunction. And I've just always loved and preferred how easy the ecosystem is with itself, and there's not much setup required. I know that you can emulate it a lot with Windows and Android, but it requires a lot of additional download this program or configure it this way or set it up this way. Whereas having one company in charge of all the hardware and the software, for the most part, streamlines everything. And that's not perfect. I still people who watch my channel know I complain about Apple probably more than any other company, but it's because I'm such a hardcore Apple user. I use them more than anything. So I
Yeah.
find all the flaws and complain about all the issues. But yeah, I reviewed like the Z Fold 2, the Z Flip, the S20 Ultra, the Pixel 4a. That was my favorite. I thought the 4a was amazing. But yeah, I got kind of mixed feedback from my Android reviews, and I just figured, well, if people just want me to be the Apple guy, I can be the Apple guy.
Well, there's two challenges or two thoughts that I had in my head. One was in relation to Samsung specifically, and specifically with DeX. I think it'd be an interesting challenge to see if you could turn your phone into your one and done machine for everything. Your live streaming machine, your video editing machine.
That
would be awesome.
A video editor. Oh.
Well, I mean, it can do it technically. It can, Stetson. Stetson, I've edited videos on my phone to upload to places with the little iMovie thing. But anyway, so that was one thought, and then the second thought I had is like, I know, granted, it means less now with M1 being a thing because M1 is honestly pretty legendary.
Right.
I have a MacBook Pro myself, although Stetson gets mad because
I think I would use Dennis's M1 Max MacBook Pro more than Dennis uses his M1 Max MacBook Pro.
Yes, he gets mad because I bought it and I very, very rarely use it.
I have an M1 Air that I got just to like do work on the go, and it works in a pinch. But I'm working on a 2019 iMac, and it was great when I bought it. But this whole Apple Silicon thing is like, everything is leaps and bounds ahead of it now. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
ready to upgrade.
It
Oh,
changed
hey,
everything.
Drew. Here's a good question I think that'd help out Stetson too. Well, we already kind of made a NAS for him, but question: how do you store your footage, man? All your footage. Do you have a NAS yourself? Do you store it in the cloud? How do you do that?
You're gonna hate me for this answer. I got the 8 terabyte MacBook,
Oh my god!
but
Sick.
it's partly because I know about NAS. You know, my friends have done them. I don't have that many. All of this office is running off of 2 power outlets. I do not have that much power in here, and we live in an area where there's been a lot of wildfires, and you know, my wife lost her family home that she grew up in, and I am always aware that that's a possibility where I live. So I want everything to get ready to be packed up and go quick. And I also, we do want to take trips, and we have gone on spontaneous and long distance trips where I still want to have access to files and still be able to work wherever I go. And there's a lot of B-roll and footage I store locally. So if I was in a more stationary environment and I was just like, no, I'm always going to work here, but I'll never work away, then I would probably be more comfortable storing storage locally. But I just don't like, I never liked having like towers anyway. I always preferred the all-in-one approach. I liked having as little complexity as possible, which is why I like having a laptop and just storing everything locally and as close by, and I don't have to fuss around with external ports and get Ethernet and that kind of thing. So I'm weird like that, I know. But yeah, I've been trying to downgrade our iCloud because I used to pay for the 2 terabyte plan, and then I was like, this is stupid because I'm going to fill it up and then I'm going to have to go through it and clean it out
and delete it
anyway.
anyway.
So I might as well clean through it now and save some money. So we're about to go down to the 50 gig plan. We're at 200 now, but we're just kind of storing a lot more stuff locally. And I think social media is probably the best way to host pictures for free.
Oh god,
You know,
the
that's
compression. No,
yeah, it's compressed, but it's like if not having
It's a
compression
memory.
is going to cost me hundreds of dollars more, then
So-
I'll just, my memories can be compressed. I don't care.
So Drew, you definitely fall more on Stetson's camp. I'm on the whole other end of the spectrum. Like I have
Yeah.
a NAS that has
Yeah.
stuff that gets backed up to it. Stuff also gets backed up to our unlimited Google Drive storage that we have thanks to Stetson.
Wow,
That might be going away.
Unlimited.
But yeah,
then-
there was actually a sort of a glitch, or I don't know, a hack. They had G Suite Business. If you signed up, they said they would limit one user account to, I think it was like 2 terabytes per user. And if you
Wow.
had 5 or more, it was unlimited per user. But they just never limited you. And so it's
That's
like
great.
for one
Actually,
user,
there
it's
is
unlimited.
one caveat. They do limit you on how much you could upload in a singular day. I discovered.
Oh,
That's
okay.
true. 750 gigabytes.
Yes,
So as
I
long as you
discovered
take your
that.
time,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
The other solution, Dropbox has a business plan, and you
Yeah.
can get truly unlimited for $25 per account or per user.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Unlimited data for $25 a month? That sounds
That's
really
correct.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
Also, Google Drive does give you unlimited storage if you have T-Mobile. They brought that back.
that's photos. Unlimited
photos.
storage. Yeah.
Right.
2 terabytes, I think, is what the storage is. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
honestly, though, TLDR, storing locally is good, but I highly recommend backing up the important stuff.
No, I'm actually curious though, Drew. Like, do you delete your videos when you're done with them? Like,
So I delete the raw footage. I keep
okay,
a
the
copy
final
of the
video.
I keep a copy of the completed video. I don't really know why, just in case YouTube crashed and burned. But it's been around so long, I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I don't even know if I should be doing that anymore, because like the first video uploaded to YouTube is still there. That's your free unlimited storage is YouTube. I mean,
But I want you to do a Linus where you're keeping like all the raws and stuff, so that way you can revisit that footage. Because one of the things I told Stetson behind the scenes when he makes content is, don't like do double the work. Make the work that you put in turn into double like the product. So like reuse some of the clips that he took from say this video to use in another video.
Yeah.
I want to see you do that too, because I think it'd be cool to have like I don't know, maybe when your channel hits some grand milestone, 10 years old or whatever, you could just have like a little way back, like this was my first upload, like the raw Like, here's the quality.
Oh,
Now look
yeah.
at where it's at today. Because I know when I look back at the show, when we look at the first episode of this podcast, which if you get the chance, Drew, you should watch it.
You should
It's
actually
hilarious.
not watch it. It's horrible.
It's
quality.
hilariously
have to
terrible. No, it's hilariously terrible because I literally was using this mic, the Astro mic, and it just came in and out. There was no us being on camera. It was horrible. Stetson actually bought me this mic for like the next show because the audio was that bad.
Wow.
Wow.
That was nice of you.
Hey, shout out to you, Channel 808 Life. Thank you so much for the kind support.
Oh, that's cool.
Saying I use KindMaster / iPhone 12 Pro Max to edit all of my YouTube videos. So I am wrong. It is entirely possible to run a YouTube channel entirely off of an iPhone.
Oh, I believe it's possible. I'm just not convinced it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
With my line of work, the thing is, I'm not like Marquez. I don't have a bunch of glorious B-roll that I could preserve and cut to all the time. I do keep my B-roll that I make, but most of my videos are not B-roll. It's mostly A-roll, me talking, me speculating, guessing, thinking about a particular subject. And I'm like, I upload that to Apple Podcasts, so there's an audio version of it. I post it to YouTube, so there's a 4K at 60 copy of it that will probably be preserved for decades. So the vast majority of my content, I'm comfortable deleting the raw footage of because I'm just like, this line of work, I don't believe is going to age like artwork in a museum. This is going to be like dated tomorrow. In fact, I've done a lot of videos where I'm like, I'm going to talk about this, and this whole video is going to be pointless in a week because
you underestimate how many times I've gone back to rewatch like the Steve Jobs Apple event and other key moments in tech history.
Well, that's a historic moment.
Well,
Look,
you've had
that's
some
valuable.
historic moments. You have some historic like moments that you've reported on, but
I don't think I'm as memorable or as valuable as Steve was,
Not yet.
or even Marquez.
yeah, not yet is the key word.
Yeah,
No, it does make a lot of sense to go through and delete. I used to do exactly what we did, just keep the final video, delete all the other stuff. I've now, like, I review cell phone plans, and I want something to be visual there, so I've been filming like phones on my desk and things like that. So
Sure.
I started keeping everything, which is part of the reason I built the NAS, just to try that out.
Yeah.
And I've liked it so far, but I'm able to reuse stuff where I feel like if you're speculating on a future product that doesn't exist, like, you're pulling in new graphics every time you're making a video.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of the time it's crappy pixelated leaked pictures that are going to be inaccurate in a week or two. And so it's like, if that's what is mostly I'm talking about, I don't really see the point in keeping it. But I love the shots you've done from what I've seen.
Oh, thank you. We
Well
really
done.
appreciate that. Cool.
It looks, both your backgrounds look incredible.
Again, Stetson made those.
I made these, so thank you. I appreciate that.
Although the
Well
green
done.
screens were my idea.
It's true.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was in my bedroom before, and I don't know, something about having a bed behind you just doesn't look that professional. So huge shout out to Dennis for being like, yeah, let's get green screens. So we
That's
did.
not a bad
and
idea.
I made some backgrounds, and yeah.
You got to sleep somewhere. Come on.
Yeah, it's true. Just happens to be right there.
Yeah.
In camera, right there.
Well, for me, on the other side of this green screen is yet another plastic table, like the ones you see at like yard sales, with more computers on top of it. Specifically, my work laptop, and then like an old tower that I like, my first game PC. That's like an old tower that's actually. A server now. So
Nice.
it's more of just me keeping clean separation in the room because
Yeah.
I didn't want people looking at that disgusting plastic desk in the background. But did you have any more Patreon questions that came in, Stetson?
I think
Yes,
we
you
hit
did.
all of them, honestly.
I'll just
Yeah.
do this. I'll blur my background.
Wow. Honestly, that looks pretty good.
Thank you, M1 chip.
Seriously.
Yes. Well, Drew, is there anything you want to plug to our audience? I know you got the Patreon that you're saving up for on the Tesla vehicle, but is there anything else you want to like kind of talk about?
Whoa, wait a minute. What Tesla are you getting? Sorry, I'm saving up for one too, and so now I'm curious.
You are?
Yeah, I started like the moment I graduated. I was like, I'm saving up for
wow.
a Tesla. So
Oh,
every
okay.
month, just like chuck a
I need
little
to
bit
hear
in
about
there.
this. I finally got mine yesterday. I'm so excited. It was a little smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Oh, you got us.
No, I got basically the cheapest one. the Model 3 rear-wheel drive. Although I did opt for the white interior just because
Looks nice.
It moved up the delivery timeline a little bit, and I'm getting impatient. I want my car now. And
Yeah.
also,
So
it
you
does.
actually did order. It's coming then.
Yeah, I've ordered. I've ordered. It says currently July 29th to September
Man.
9th. So somewhere in
Oh,
there. I hope it doesn't get delayed because we're trying to like plan trips around it and make plans, and it's already been pushed back once. So now I'm kind of like, I don't know what's happening. I didn't have anything I wanted to plug, but I had a question. Basically, what I keep suggesting to every ISP I get, and what I keep saying in all my reviews is there a way for them to make a specific creator tier where it's like, I'll accept a lower download speed if my upload is improved? Is that feasible, or is that just not the way most internet is structured? Is that not possible?
So I want to make sure I understand the question. Your question is, can there be a custom speed tier that has higher upload than download?
Yeah, can anybody do that where you're just like, with the same hardware, we just change something on the back end that says we give you less download but more upload? Or is it
like
hardwired in a way that's not really
Comcast,
feasible?
let's say you get Gig Pro, most people get 1,000 down, 35 up. Could there be a creator tier that's 300 down, but then also 300 up?
So, yeah, something like that. It didn't even have to
100
be
up.
equal.
You know,
yeah,
yeah,
100
yeah,
up.
but just
sure.
faster.
Can it happen?
Yeah.
Sure.
So you're saying it's physically possible. It's not
So yeah, this is something that could already exist.
I mean, sure. Creating speed tiers isn't that hard. I mean, there'd be money involved. Well,
is there anything limiting the upload speed? Like, why is 35 the top speed you can get?
Short answer is because for most cable operators, they are basically limited by like 200 megabits per second of shared upload, and they limit the upload to at these lower levels to give themselves some buffer room so they don't have to spend extra money to do more node splits.
Okay.
And this has just all been staving off until basically they can do full duplex, which is like part of DOCSIS 4.0, or you take advantage of extended DOCSIS spectrum to add more upstream channels to give higher upload capacities. So there is some physical limitations, sort of, less so than that. I think the other reason, and more so importantly, is like, let's just say Comcast in this scenario wants to come out with a new speed tier, okay? Well, first, they have to make the boot file for it. But it's not just making one boot file. You have to make that boot file for every single modem that's on the market that can support that speed tier. So now you're talking about like Aris Surfboard S8300, Aris Surfboard S33. Insert all modems that are from Aris that can do it. Do the same thing for all Comcast gateways that can do it for both models. Do the same thing for all the Motorola's and insert modems. So there's that part. Now, wait, we're not done yet. Now, you also have to make sure that you can actually have that in your billing system so it can be billed correctly for plans. Because a lot of times these companies, especially when we're talking about like these massive companies like your AT&Ts of the world, have a spaghetti system of different systems where like one's for the biller and one's for this. And a lot of times they're paying some third-party company that handles that. So you have to pay them to put that into the biller so it gets billed properly.
Okay.
Then you also have to train your representatives and whomever else to be able to troubleshoot issues, assuming that boot file doesn't load correctly on that piece of equipment. And then you finally have it. Now, how many people are going to buy it?
A lot.
Not many. Just me.
No.
Right.
I'll also get it. Yeah. Everyone who's a YouTuber will be like, yes, this should have existed years
and a
ago.
lot of other people would buy it too. I care about upload. I would buy it too. But you're missing the point. Like, it's a lot of effort for like small return.
Something they should have done from the get-go.
It's a lot of effort for small return, and also there's also the infrastructure expenditure where let's just say there really is a bunch of people that buy it on that one singular node.
Sure.
And then you run into an issue now where your upstream capacity is now saturated, and now you have to either do a node split to basically reduce the amount of customers that are sharing the bandwidth on that node, or you need to do like a mid split and add more upstream channels, which these are expensive endeavors and typically not how your telecom companies operate. So is it feasible? Yes. Why did they not do it? Money.
Yeah, that makes sense. I figured it was something like that, but I just never knew you seem like a guy who knows a lot about this, so I figured if anybody would know, it'd be Dennis. And
Yeah.
that's the question I've been asking for years, because I'm the kind of guy that would literally take a download decrease. Like I would take 50 down for 100 up. Genuinely.
Also, I will just say one other thing. Download and upload speeds are very loosely like linked to each other in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean very loose like, but
Right.
TLDR is that by the nature of download speeds increasing, upload speeds have to follow to some extent. Like if Comcast decided one day, I'm just going to use an exaggerated example. If Comcast wanted to offer 10 gig download and still try to do 35 upload, that would actually cause real problems that would limit your download speeds for certain servers. Because remember, when you're talking to a server, you still have to send packets of information back being like, hey, I got this packet. Go ahead and send me the next bit of traffic. And like you got to do stuff like that. So they are loosely limited. Ideal circumstances, you don't want to go beyond a 10-to-1 ratio. However, we've seen Comcast has been pushing that further and other cable operators. But TLDR, upload speeds are definitely going to increase, especially with competition and especially because COVID changed the way the world reacts. I just think that for the most part, up until I would say within the last 3 years, upload speed, I don't want to say didn't matter because there were definitely people that still cared, I being one of them, but it just didn't matter to the average consumer. Like it didn't impact the actual experience.
For sure. Like I'm trying to imagine what my parents use upload. What it's probably next to nothing. They would probably have. Yeah. I
mean, honestly, 35 meg even doesn't stop you from doing anything you want to do. The only thing it stops you from doing is like large backups of files with reasonable amounts of time, and that's roughly about it at the current moment. But with all the different smart home appliances, like your security cameras that you talked about, for me, I have literally 4K security cameras, so they use a lot of bandwidth.
For sure.
That's changing the need, and it's one of those things where it's just like, it didn't need to happen, so it didn't really happen, and there was so many different roadblocks along the way that made it difficult. Like, I'll give you one quick one real fast. One of the things that's really limited cable ISP specifically from improving uploads for the longest time was the need to support legacy equipment. And by legacy equipment, I'm actually specifically talking about TV, like traditional TV service. So the way cable TV works, or has worked for the longest time, is you allocate, every channel gets a specific allocation of spectrum to that specific channel, so it's available 24/7. Over time, cable operators, in order to free up more spectrum that they can use for their internet services instead, compress groups of channels into that same block. But the issue was, and that allowed them to add more downstream channels. So that's why you saw download speeds increase so dramatically. But when it came to upload speeds, in the US at least, cable operators are restricted to from 0 to 42 megahertz of spectrum for their 4 upstream channels. And that upstream bandwidth has always been noisy because it's the same frequency range like TV boxes use to talk to the CMTS to be like, hey, I'm here, turn me on. It's the same thing that your modem uses to say like, hey, I'm here, let me be on. So they couldn't do like higher QAMs to make it more efficient, and they couldn't really push up into they couldn't really add more upstream channels until they got people to go off of video IP so they could use the spectrum that was being allocated for say like 6 channels at a time to add upstream channels.
Gotcha.
And by the time that this started becoming like a feasible possibility, when it came to like equipment vendors and supporting things and ripping out stuff, we got to the point where DOCSIS 4.0 is basically here. Now it just makes more sense to be like, okay, let's just go full on DOCSIS 4.0. We'll rip out stuff, support full duplexing, which what full duplex does is it allows the cable operator to use their 32 downstream channels for both downstream and upstream.
Oh,
that solves their problem.
Yeah.
That, and also DOCSIS 4.0 freed up more spectrum to be used over the same coaxial network. It adds 600 megahertz of total spectrum from the 1.2 gigahertz range to 1.8 gigahertz range. It's referred to as extended DOCSIS.
I see.
So yeah, I think the options are move to a place with fiber or wait it out until DOCSIS 4.0 is actually here.
Like, 2024 is probably the earliest time you're going to see that happen.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years.
That's 2 years from now.
Patient, I guess.
Well, Drew, thank you so much for coming on the show with us. Again, everyone, you can subscribe to Tailosive Tech down in the video description. How would you describe like what kind of content you make? I feel like it's kind of a broad. It's like tech.
Cringe? I do. Yeah, I guess it's mostly I call it buyer's guides to public people in public. Is like telling you what to wait for and what's not worth waiting for, and telling you what's mostly surrounding Apple, what's a good deal and what's not, and what I wouldn't recommend versus what I would recommend. And and then of course I cover my internet service in the meantime. So that's that's my best.
I call it the best thing since sliced bread. If you guys aren't watching his channel, you need to do so now. Subscribe and hit the bell notification. If not for anything else, do it for his skits. His skits are legendary.
Thank you.
It's true. It's quite funny.
Well, appreciate
Very
it.
enjoyable.
Wait, what mobile phone service are you guys both on? I have to know.
Okay.
This is a loaded question.
Yeah, it is, but I'll start. So I have, we'll call it 2 primary numbers. I got one that's on T-Mobile because I'm a sucker for abuse. T-Mobile's not good in Pittsburgh, or generally wasn't good in Pittsburgh for the longest time. And then I got my second line on AT&T, which is actually my OG first smartphone line that I just strictly use for 2-factor and data. Those are my 2 primaries, and that AT&T line's actually on my parents' plan still.
There you go.
But nice. I do have a Verizon line as well that I also use for data. It's like an enterprise Verizon line. And
so many.
There's more lines than that, but those are like the big 3.
Yeah,
Stetson, go.
I think this will just kind of summarize my situation. These are all active lines. It's like AT&T, 2 Verizon, Google Fi's in there. We got 2 Telo lines. It's a mess.
Drew, do you understand my situation?
Yeah. This is what happens.
There's more phones on the ground behind the green screen.
It's a mess. It's a mess. My primary number was on Mint Mobile. I was loving them too. And then we did a stream, I want to say 1 or 2 weeks ago, and my friend Austin donated and was like, you should switch to the new T-Mobile plan. It's called Base Essentials, and test it out. And it was such a generous donation, I couldn't say no. So I ended up switching. Terrible value plan, but it's still T-Mobile, and so the experience is fine.
Dang, that's amazing.
And then I have a lot of other lines. My other, like, if you're looking to help people out, I would look into US Mobile. They use Verizon for coverage, and they're probably like the best low-cost Verizon option right now is what I would say.
Okay. They also have great security, which I appreciate, and literally the best application, period. You talked about Mint Mobile having a great app. US Mobile is...
It's pretty cool. I like them. So
sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll remember that.
Anyway, cool. Thank you so much for your time. That's it for the show. And we'll catch everyone definitely next week in the live stream. So thank you.